Last winter, millions of Americans tuned in to over 130 independent television stations to watch Scared Straight, a documentary based on the Juvenile Awareness Project at Rahway Prison in New Jersey. Scared Straight is a film made about the lifers there, a group of convicts who created 3-hour intimidation sessions on the realities of prison life. During those sessions, the lifers confront juveniles with the brutality of prison in an attempt to scare them away from crime. So overwhelming was the response to the film that where such prison programs didn't exist, legislators rushed to create them. Many juveniles would now be sentenced to prison visits on the basis of this film, which had overnight become a phenomenon.
Keep trying me, man. Get up, you think it's get out of here. Get up off that bench.
One of the reasons Scared Straight took off was its drama, recorded for the first time with sophisticated production techniques. Tight close-ups of angry prisoners describing homosexual rapes and murders caught the eye of both parents and kids. Even though there had been other films about the Rahway Project, Scared Straight was the first to show kids' faces, their anxiety-ridden reactions to the graphic descriptions of life on Murderers' Row.
You take something from me, and I'll kill you. And I ain't hardly bullshit.
Added to the built-in drama of prison reality and kids being intimidated was the promotion of Scared Straight by Golden West broadcasters. In an unusual move, the film was given away for free in more than 20 of the largest cities in the country. But if the drama and the distribution of the film weren't enough to grab people's attention, the critical acclaim for Scared Straight had everybody caught up. The Polk Award for Journalism, not to mention the Emmys that it won, and an Oscar, created almost total acceptance of these two crucial claims made by Peter Falk.
Every one of the 17 kids we filmed at Rahway had broken the law. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that some of these kids used to get busted by the police every week. The results of this unique program are astounding. Participating communities report that 80 to 90% of the kids that they sent to Rahway go straight after leaving this stage.
It was these two assertions made in the film, that the juveniles were hardcore delinquents and that 80 to 90% of them had been frightened away from crime, that at one point caused all 50 legislatures to consider such programs. The film's report of positive results had such an impact that one judge actually sentenced a juvenile to 2 weeks in an adult prison. Any breakthrough in the treatment of juvenile delinquency, especially one that has become so widely accepted so quickly, is worth examining. So Magazine decided to take a look, not only at the film and its claims, but also at the concept of treating juveniles by scaring them straight.
Number 15, straight. Number 16, straight. Number 17, straight.
We started where the producer of Scared Straight, Arnold Shapiro, started, in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. 4 of the 17 juveniles seen in the film came from the inner city of nearby Passaic. But 13 came from this more middle-class community, brought in by Detective Sergeant Charles Martini.
You've seen the film. If you didn't know these kids, what would you think of them from looking at the film?
You would get the impression that they're all chronic juvenile offenders.
And is that the right impression?
Totally, I have to say no, it is not.
It is not?
No. Some were never arrested, but I might have known what they were doing, or their parents might have known what they're doing, so they wanted them to go. Some, I have to honestly say, were never arrested.
Did you know that they were going to portray these kids as tough kids, juvenile delinquents, kids who'd broken the law repeatedly?
No, I had no idea what any of the narration would be of the movie.
The whole country thinks they're all hardened criminals then.
But I didn't do that. The TV did that.
And it's what was said on TV that bothers some of the Ridgefield Park parents. Some of their kids were seen in the film, so they hired Maurice Frager to represent them in a $10 million lawsuit against Golden West broadcasters. Their charges? Misrepresentation and invasion of privacy.
All through the country, friends and relatives of my clients have sent them letters asking, how come your child is in this prison? How come
The attorney and the parents claim that unlike the kids from Passaic, their kids either had no records or records for only the most minor offenses like truancy, and that they'd not been forced by authorities to visit the prison. That indeed most of them had gone willingly.
Well, it's all on a voluntary basis. Some kids actually want to go. Some kids approach me that heard about it and want to go.
How tough could I have been? Tell me.
If the kids sent from Ridgefield Park by Martini were volunteers to begin with and didn't have serious records as the film claims, then what crimes were they scared away from? And if they were reasonably straight from the beginning, wasn't the 80 to 90% cure rate a gross exaggeration? If Martini's kids hadn't been arrested once a week, was it only the 4 ghetto kids in the film that were the real delinquents? In spite of these questions, Arnold Shapiro, writer, producer, and director of Scared Straight, stands by his film and his statistics.
When police officers of a town tell me that these are kids who are slated to go through the program anyway, and they assure me that they have all violated the law per my request, I don't go around assuming that they're lying to me or that they're conning me or that there's some reason that they're throwing ringers in there. And
You don't go around double checking, triple checking.
Well, I don't even know what I would have checked. I mean, there was no reason to.
Well, you're not worried then about the credibility or the questions about 80 to 90% cure rate?
I have never come upon anybody who has told me about kids who have been damaged by going to Rahway. And as far as the 80 to 90%, if somebody's going to watch the whole hour of Scared Straight and see everything that it has to say and suggest and the questions it raises, and dwell only on the 80 to 90%, then I think they're either being narrow or they're on the attack for some selfish reason.
Among the first to attack the claims made by the film, as well as the effectiveness of the method, was Dr. James Finkenauer of Rutgers University, who has studied the Lifers program at Rahway for the last 2 years. His study, done for the New Jersey Department of Corrections, yielded results very different from Shapiro's more informal survey.
We found that the success rate in our experimental group was about 57%, 58%, something like that.
Kids who stayed straight?
These were kids who, within a 6-month period, had no further record of delinquency. Now, some people might say, well, that's not bad. That's true, but it's certainly a far away from 80 to 90% successful. Where the finding really becomes significant is when you compare it with the outcomes from the group who didn't go there. 89% of those kids had no offenses in the 6-month follow-up period.
Wouldn't a study like Dr. Finkenauer's make you question whether or not maybe you should edit out that statement that there's an 80 to 90% cure rate until it's proven one way or the other?
No, absolutely not. We reported what everybody else had reported, basically. It's just that ours got wider exposure.
But Finkenauer's study wasn't the only one to question the claims touted in the film. 2 other reports have been released since the film was aired. One, undertaken by a New Jersey county, used a small sample, but it showed that the success rate was down to 24%. The Michigan Department of Corrections used a sample that was larger than either New Jersey study when it examined its own less intimidating prison program. It reported that, quote, the inescapable conclusion was that youngsters who participated in the program did no better than their control counterparts, end quote. Which means that exposure to even mild amounts of prison reality didn't significantly decrease youthful offenses. To some experts, though, what is even more worrisome is another finding suggested by Dr. Finkenauer's study, that attendance at the program may actually hurt some kids psychologically. Especially vulnerable to the possibility of harm are innocent kids who all over the country are being taken on prison visits by church groups, good government groups, and sometimes they are being sent by their teachers on class field trips.
There's also the danger, particularly given the open-ended, non-uniform selection process that goes on by the sponsoring agencies, that some kids, and perhaps many kids, who are just emotionally and psychologically unprepared to be subjected to this kind of thing are not screened out and are, in fact, subjected to it.
So it could be extremely damaging.
It could be traumatizing to those kids, and we don't yet know to what extent that's happening, and we don't yet have any measures of that, but certainly that's a strong possibility.
Robert Clements co-founded the Juvenile Awareness Project at Rahway. Now incarcerated at Graterford Prison in Pennsylvania and due for parole in March, Clements worries that his original idea has become so distorted by wide media coverage, including Scared Straight, that its effect on chronic offenders will produce more, not less, crime. He spoke of his concerns with his attorney, Andrew Vox, who posed this question.
This kid's in some old lady's backyard. He's stealing apples, all right? The old lady comes out and she says, I caught you stealing apples. I'm calling the police. You're going to prison. What does the kid do?
Well, the kid might kill her.
Yeah, the kid might kill her.
Fear is not the answer. Like, fear, you can be afraid now. It's like pain. Who remembers pain? Who remembers being afraid? Right? You're afraid for the moment. It's just a moment thing, and then it's over. Now, if you can bring that fear back by like Andy said, somebody stealing an apple, you like use this fear to strike back at who caught you and wind up killing somebody for no reason at all.
83-86-5J. Possession of a deadly weapon. 32181, atrocious assault. 32337, robbery.
32351, atrocious assault.
82844, attempted armed robbery, atrocious assault.
Ghetto streets are home for these kids when they're not at the Jamesburg State Training School in New Jersey. Of the 5 we spoke to, 3 have gone through the Rahway program and ended up back here.
You were with a social worker who believed she was doing the right thing, taking you up there, right? And she was helping you, right? Okay. She turned to you and said, right after you walked out of there, what did you think? And you said what?
I didn't think nothing. Right?
Did you tell her you were scared?
Yeah, I told her I was scared, but after I got back out in the streets in my own hometown, I wasn't scared for nothing. I wasn't thinking about none of that. I just went back out and got in trouble.
Let her think that.
In other words, you were running a con.
Yeah, run the game on her. It's just like a whole Coney Island spook house, that's all. Once you out of the spook house, it's over with. Yelling don't do no good. You get yelled at every day. Yelling ain't nothing. When you're home, you get yelled at. Your mother yell at you. Your father yell at you.
That way?
That ain't nothing. Not that way, but you get yelled at regardless. And where I live at, you hear them words every day. Right, and again. Every day.
Many of these kids, in part, became delinquent because they came from home backgrounds in which they were yelled at. People swore at them. People put them down. They demeaned them. They belittled them, and that put them in a position of becoming delinquent. Now, all of a sudden, we've reversed the process and said we can use the same technique to make them non-delinquent. Well, I don't understand that.
It was after Finkenauer's study was released that Golden West broadcasters called a press conference at New York's glamorous 21 Club. Rallying to the defense of the Rahway Project was Tony Rivera, the youth worker who had provided the 4 Passaic kids seen in the film. Rivera and Martini are 2 of the Rahway Project's most public supporters.
I myself personally feel that you save your statistics for cardboard boxes and crates. But when it comes to an individual and a life, then you just leave that to hell alone. You can't measure that.
Rivera admits that without constant follow-up, a prison visit has little chance of being effective, a feeling borne out by the Michigan study, which reports, quote, one might be inclined to conclude that family stability and stability involving education or employment are more important than a visit to a Michigan prison, end quote.
There are all kinds of reasons why any particular kid becomes a juvenile delinquent. Things that have to do with the family, that have to do with their educational background, that have to do with socialization process, that have to do with their peer group, a whole series of things, none of which really attendance at this program can have any effect upon.
TV's safe, though, right?
TV's safe, sure. It's beautiful.
Watch a little TV and,
you sit the kid down and sit the kid down in front of the television and say to the kid, now watch this.
When we got sexual desires, who do you think we get? And don't tell me...
After the program's over, you say to the kid, how do you feel? Well, I don't like that. I would never want to go there. And the mother or father says, well, good. Now I don't have no more problem. But what about the kids?
If you live in one of the 38 states or hundreds of counties where Scared Straight programs exist or are being considered, you may soon be asked to let your child visit an adult prison. Before granting your permission, consider this. In the policy statement on Scared Straight programs, the American Correctional Association says, quote, "We are greatly concerned about the accent placed upon a simplistic approach to such an extremely complex problem. Attack treatment and scare tactics are not new or innovative. For more than 200 years, Americans have looked for a quick cure for juvenile delinquency and crime. No such panacea has been found."
A summit of African-American leaders in Washington is calling violence the most urgent issue facing black communities. And today, led by the Reverend Jesse Jackson, they issued a plan for action. Randall Pinkston reports.
African-American leaders ended a three-day conference on violence declaring crime as the #1 civil rights issue. Conference leader, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, insists that black people, the most frequent victims of crime, take the initiative to regain control of their neighborhoods. Outside his own home in Washington, Jackson recalled a terrifying experience for his wife.
And the guy ran right past her, running for his life. Another guy had the gun in his hand, running right past and said, "Please don't shoot me." It seemed that he was about to make a decision not to, and the woman behind him said, "Shoot him, shoot him." And he just let and killed him.
Today, the coalition unveiled its action plan. Black churches to become guardians of some first-time offenders. Less money spent for prisons. More money for social services and for job training programs, aimed at helping blacks whose unemployment rate is 2 times that of whites.
Jobs is an anti-crime bill. Jobs training, an anti-crime bill.
They will also step up the pressure on so-called gangster rap music, which often endorses violence and degrades women, and launch a media monitoring project. Entertainer Bill Cosby accused his industry of promoting negative stereotypes of blacks.
They want minstrels and clowns. The top priority is intelligence. They'll give you women, they'll give you money, but they will not give you the vice presidency of the company.
The rage of violence, as it's been called, is of course a problem facing all Americans. But black leaders fear if they don't try to stop it in their own communities, no one else will. Randall Pinkston, CBS
40 years ago today, the Civil Rights Act changed the landscape of America. President Johnson signed the measure making segregation illegal. Last night, entertainer Bill Cosby sharply criticized the black community for wasting strides made since then and to get its act together.
It is almost analgesic to talk about what the white man is doing against us. And it keeps a person frozen in their seat. Please, stop it. Stop your cursing. We want to ask the parent, stop yanking that child.
2 months ago, Cosby made headlines when he criticized the poor grammar of some blacks. Now here's John Roberts with a preview of tonight's CBS Evening News.